Okay.
Okay, we are live.
Hi, Liliana.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. Fine, fine.
You are quite busy today.
Yes. We wish we could stay together also this year.
I don't know. I hope the next year. I don't know. This is a little bit strange, to be honest, and somehow it's not the same feeling, indeed.
Yes.
But okay.
ICCSA, it's almost a family reunion.
Yeah. Yes. I hope that all of you are going to stay and to write a lot of articles, just like for this year, the next year. And I assume that, if the situation is going to develop nice in better way, and more positive, that we are going to meet there in Sardinia, or okay.
Yes. Okay.
David, I think that we can start now.
Okay, that's great. So
everyone, please close their microphone.
Yes,
David.
Yes, it's fine. Thank you. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the International Conference of Computational Science and its Applications, which, as you know, is fully running online due to the new normal thing after the COVID. This is David Cabana, and I will do my best to facilitate this session. I still can listen some mic that is open, and I will really appreciate if someone can mute their mics. Thank you. I'm facilitating this session from Cagliari, Sardinia, Western Mediterranean. So welcome to the Nature's Contribution to People session. This is the continuation of the morning session where very diverse topics were tackled. This morning we have navigated from multi-criteria analysis to identify landscape units to an approach to quantify local and global ecosystem services. Even the builders made it to pop up in a presentation. Then we had a study on the spatial distribution and surface temperature and land cover. And the last presentation this morning was about the impact of renewable energy and installation on habitat quality. And now we are about to start the afternoon session, European time. I hope you are ready again for a fascinating session. So where 3 studies implemented in Italy and Portugal will be presented. We are starting with the work done by Angela Pilogallo, University of Basilicata, and co-authors, and the work is named Soil Ecosystem Services and Sediment Production, the Basilicata Region Case Study. Angela, the floor is yours, but before, please remember the audience following the session from the conference platform to mute their mics and video, and mute their mobiles, hold their cats and dogs if they have them, and so we are sure that everything runs smoothly. Thank you. Angela, floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm going to share my video. Can you see it?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon again. I'm Angela Pilogallo, a PhD student from the University of Basilicata. My research project focuses on ecosystem services and land use changes, and it's aimed to compose an evaluation framework of territorial transformation. The 2 works I'm presenting today are just 2 tiles of the mosaic of my research project. Providing a lot of function like supporting agricultural production, regulating carbon or nutrient cycles, and so on. Soil is the core of terrestrial ecosystems. Although it is recognized that soil function must be preserved in order to pursue sustainable development goals, several researches from all over the world highlight a non-effective integration of soil conservation into the territorial governance. Our case study concerns an Italian region located in the core of the Mediterranean basin that is expected to be one of the more vulnerable areas of the globe for both land degradation phenomena and climate changes. The study area is crossed by the Apennine chain that divide the region into mountainous western areas and an eastern areas with lower slope, characterized by lower slopes. The Basilicata region has a very low population density, and a large part of regional territory is covered by natural and semi-natural land use classes, even if in the last 30 years we registered an increase in arable land and monoculture at the expenses of wooded areas and agricultural mosaic. Okay, well, as territorial planners, we wondered, how can we evaluate this kind of transformation? What are the effects of this trend? And how can we integrate soil conservation into a framework that supports an effective sustainable development for our region? Maybe we can start from building a more exhaustive context of knowledge. For this reason, we used Invest, an open source tool that implement RUSLE as the equation, as the model to assess soil loss. These are data needs for running the model. Some of them are not available for the study area. For example, for the rainfall erosivity map, we used a relation based on annual mean precipitation map, since it was the only data available in terms of temporal series for both 1919 and 2018, the 2 years considered as a reference. These two maps were thus obtained in GIS environment. The soil erodibility factor was derived from GRC European Soil Data Center, while for the biophysical table, we referred to scientific literature data and considering an only value for the support practice index, according to Panagos et al. 2015, for referring to a work that was carried out at the European scale. This map represents our result obtained for the 2 years with a maximum rate of almost 300 tons per hectare. Some differences appear in several areas of the region, some of them corresponding to an increase in soil loss rate, other to a reduction of this erosive rate. As planner, what are we most interested in? Obviously, in what we can manage, so land use change. We found that soil loss in large area of our region are linked to the management of coppice wood, where the forestry sector in the areas from the Basilicata region, where the forestry sector is an important economical activity. In other cases, the supposed abandonment of agriculture, that is, in our case, the transition from arable land to shrubland and woodlands, implies a reduction of the soil loss rate, so an improvement from this perspective. In other zones, in other areas, land degradation phenomena were induced by wildfires, turning into bare lands areas previously vegetated, and by the deforestation carried out to allow the expansion, the growth of agricultural areas. So I'm going to conclude. As already stated, this work constitutes a first step in order to make soil ecosystem services assessment an effective tool for decision maker and policies designer. We really think that this kind of integrate approach could support a more sustainable development by explicating complex dynamics involving several territorial stakeholders. Thanks for your attention. And
okay,
I'm available for a question.
Yes, thank you very much, Angela. I don't know if there is any question from the audience. Anyone Is there any question? I cannot see if there is in the rising hand or in the chat. No questions. Okay.
Yes, there's one from Danny. Sorry.
Well, yes, Danny has a question.
Okay. Can I read it? Or
Yeah, do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, a short question regarding the economical implications of the soil erosion. For example, for the agricultural sector, it is possible to convince decision makers that this is something that is worth to invest in?
Yes, for sure. This is one of our future development. This, as I stated, was a very first step in order to have a complete knowledge framework to negotiate with decision maker cost in order to how can we say compensate such disadvantageous choices in agricultural sector.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't know if we have any more questions. Seems not. Okay, thank you very much. I really enjoyed your presentation, and it brings me to think about how complex are those interactions between the economic, the cultural, and even other aspects that are more global as climate change, how all these interact, and we can see these changes in the territory at a small scale. So I think it has a great potential. Yeah. Yes,
maybe our layer of information are not detailed enough, because, you know, for 2019 we have to use the Corinne land cover with a resolution of 1 kilometer. We for sure need to have a more detailed approach if we want at the regional level assess the real soil loss rate.
Yeah, and understand. But anyway, yes, at a national level, it has a good representativeness. So yeah, I think it has great potential. So yeah, thank you very much. I don't know if we still have time for a question. If not, we can step to the next presentation. So yes, the second presentation on this session in Nature Contributions to People will be held by Luciana Nollet, Università of Basilicata, and she's presenting a work that has been done in Portugal and Italy, and the name is Comparing Habitat Degradation Between a Case Study from Italy and Portugal. Hi, Luciana. Welcome. Hi, welcome. Please set up your slides, share your screen, tune your mic, and then the floor is yours. Okay.
Okay. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, everything is okay. You can start whenever you. Okay.
So good afternoon. I am Luciana Nollet, and I am a student of environmental engineering from Basilicata University. And the work who I speak about is aimed at comparing the habitat quality from two different study areas, from Portugal, Tomar, and southern Italy, Potenza. It has been carried out in collaboration with Laboratory of Engineering of Territorial and Urban System from the University of Basilicata and of Professor Luis Santos from the Polytechnic Institute of Tomar. The ecosystem service framework is a more holistic approach to integrate environmental and territorial planning and to highlight the alteration occurred in the ecosystem capacity to provide benefits for humankind. Considering habitat quality and degradation representative of biodiversity, and more generally, the suitability of nesting site and plants growing, the purpose of this work is to investigate the role played by different territorial components and driving forces in determining the overall environmental quality. What are ecosystem services? The Millennium Ecosystem Assessment defines ecosystem service as the benefits for the human well-being, which derive from ecosystems, nature, and biomes. We include goods like, for example, food, water, raw materials, and a set of functions which contribute to the performance of a certain ecological process, such as, for example, pollution absorption, maintenance of water quality, disease control, and so on. According to MEA, that represent the first official classification, there are 4 main categories: supply service, which concern the availability of resource; regulatory service, about regulation of process and events; support service, which cover all the activities necessary for the performance of all ecosystem functions, such as, for example, habitat conservation and maintenance of biodiversity; and finally, cultural service, which contribute to the spiritual and recreational well-being of man. Spatial dimension is essential to analyze environmental transformation. For this purpose, we use INVEST, an open source software developed by Stanford University within the Natural Capital project. This is a suite of spatially explicit models used to map and measure the value, even economic, of several economic ecosystem services. Among the 18 models available, the one used for this research work is habitat quality, which estimates the quality of habitat types and their degradation level, returning an assessment of the overall biodiversity, which, according to MEA, falls within the category of support service. The concept of habitat referred in this context is not linked to the presence of a certain species, but in general to the suitability of the environment to host a variety of plant and animal organisms. The habitat quality model evaluates land use and threats to biodiversity, providing different outputs. Among these, we have the impact of traits R, which originates in a cell, defined by the first two equations, where you can choose if the decay function is linear or exponential. Habitat degradation is representative of the cumulative impact deriving from different traits, while habitat quality takes into account also the habitat suitability assigned to each of the land use classes considered in the model. The study areas chosen for the comparison both belong to Southern Europe, as already mentioned, to Portugal and Southern Italy, and they have similarities for settlement pressure and high landscape value. In addition, both are characterized by a rural environment. Tomar is a Portuguese municipality of about 43,000 inhabitants with an extension of 352 square kilometers, located in the district of Santarém in the central region. The municipal territory is mainly wooded. Forests are largely the result of policies from the 20th century, which have characterized change in land use across the country. Nowadays, 97% of Portuguese woodland is privately owned. The result of this choice is that one of the most widespread tree species in Portugal is eucalyptus, one of the most easy flammable and fire-spread species. The eucalyptus is a species not autochthonous, but imported from Australia, starting from the 1970s to support the paper industry. The eucalyptus plantations are intended solely for the cellulose industry and to ensure a faster financial return for the owners, as they are rapidly growing species. Potenza is an Italian city, capital of the Basilicata region, with an extension of about 107 square kilometers and counts 67,000 inhabitants. It is a mostly rural environment characterized by very low population and building density. The most significant territorial transformation occurred during the last decade is due to the expansion of urban areas, the transformation of rural areas, and the use of agricultural land for renewable energy production, through the construction of ground-mounted photovoltaic systems and a relevant number of wind farms. Indeed, since 2010, a large part of the territory has been affected by installation of RES plants, most of them with a total power output less than 1 megawatt, which employ the relevant territorial impact, not balanced by the low power output. To assign the suitability, it was necessary to reclassify the land use classes to make the static classes as homogeneous as possible, as by assigning to each land use class a value 0 or 1 to describe the propensity to perform a habitat function. After that, it became necessary to determine the traits table contained, the weight of each decorator considered, the type of function of decay, and the relative distance between the habitats and the source of traits. In order to conserve biodiversity, about context analysis, we needed to consider 50 sources of traits: wildfires for Tomar and development of wind turbines for Potenza. The model outputs a spatial distribution of degradation relative to years considered, assuming a more intense coloration in the most degraded areas. The first difference is that Tomar degradation level achieved is fairly homogeneous and widespread over the whole area of study, because, as highlighted in the context analysis, major territorial transformations are not of anthropic origin but linked to the phenomenon of forest fire. Instead, in Potenza, it emerged a negative impact mainly in the correspondence of inhabitat centers and more anthropizated areas. By comparison over time, we have a second difference. In Tomar, where there is a decrease of habitat quality in wooded areas facing resident settlements, highlighting as most vulnerable areas the transition zone from woodland to residential. In fact, if we consider the red circle by orthophoto, it is clear that this is a poorly wooded areas, highlighting the most vulnerable areas of transition from forest to residential class. Also due to the cumulative effect of different traits. In Potenza, there is a decrease of the habitat quality in the area located to the northwest of the urban settlement, following the installation of wind turbines, as from 2014 to 2018, their number has considerably increased. Therefore, the main threats to Tomar is represented by the forest fires. This source of impact is not negable if we consider that the three species are the more easy farmable ones, and furthermore, the source of impact is believed to potentially increasing because it is indirectly linked to climate change. In Potenza, the main source of degradation is represented by the wind farm installation. These changes are justified by the common need to take climate change challenge, but they take place in a regulatory framework that is not adequate to balance this with all the territory values, preventing adequate control and the consequent impact on the territory. In conclusion, the most degraded area between the two is Tomar, as a result of the three sources considered. At least the method applicable to different scales provides a low precision biodiversity indicator, but may provide a synthetic support for land use assessment in terms of reducing the habitat's quality, and may provide appropriate information on a land use planning and a management system that ensure, among other qualities of objective, the reduction of land take, taking into account territorial features and their ecosystem functionality, oriented to the conservation of biodiversity. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Luciana, for your nice presentation. I just want to know if there is someone in the audience that is interested to make a question. So is the time to shoot it out.
Yeah, if I can ask a
yes,
question.
Of course, Sabrina. Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
Having used myself the habitat quality model, I would like to know how you approached let's say, the subjective items that the program requires. I mean, both the evaluation of how far is a certain land cover and habitat, and the scores that you assigned to the threats, like the distance, the decay distance, or the level of significance, or the function, whether linear or exponential. How did you do that? Was that based on the literature or expert-based, or did you find another way?
Basically, we can decide in the literature there is we have a mode how to proceed, but these functions are mainly subjective. So I decide if the trait is exponential or linear. I don't know if was this the question.
Yeah, so let's say that you made all of the judgments, so it was more like of an academic exercise, because in real life you have to account for a number of things. So the outcomes will depend heavily on the weights that you assign, and on the scores, on the distances, on the function. So I appreciate the effort, but I do think that there should be more thought about the variables that one inputs on the system.
Yes, Sabrina, absolutely, you are right. In the case of Luciana is a student who discusses her thesis, bachelor thesis, not master thesis, concerning ecosystem services. And when she works on this topic, she got a table of pressures and other indicators that we developed in the laboratory concerning other studies. So she didn't were asked to go in deep in the details of the parameters that characterize habitat quality.
Okay, but that makes sense. I mean, you said that the table was based on a previous assessment.
And the table was a mixture of literature review and the previous assessment.
Okay.
But in any case, we perceive the same how can I say, the same remarks that you make, because even if you do your best in order to select indicator according to literature and so on, at the end the result is still not how can I say, fully transferable or comparable with other contexts, and that depends strongly from the subjective intention of the researcher and the specific characteristics of the context that you are investigating. And this is a limit of the application of habitat quality module, because for many reasons that we can understand.
Yeah. Thank you.
David, your microphone.
No, sorry again. So yes, I was saying to Luciana that thank you for the presentation. It was very interesting, and I'm curious about the Portuguese case, and especially about if she found any differences in between the natural forest and the monocrops of eucalyptus, because knowing that there is this big difference about the natural Atlantic forest and these monocrops, that they are just big stations of eucalyptus. For the preparation of paper, if she knows if there is any difference, or she found any difference in her research regarding the habitat degradation or the ecosystem services in relation to that different type of forest.
Yes, because it was the forest that was autochthonous. In these areas, we don't have the habitat degradation.
Okay.
Instead, in forests of eucalyptus, because they are the most flammable one, we have habitat degradation mostly for this. This is the only difference.
Okay. So yeah, thank you very much. And
Thank you.
I think at the end, if we have some time, we will come back with other questions. Now is the time for the last presentation of this session. And I'm glad to let the floor again to Angela Pilogallo, that I think she's presenting again her work, and now is entitled Assessing the Impact of Land Use Changes on Ecosystem Services Value. Sorry, Angela, are you there? Hello, Angela?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
So
I lost you for a few moments.
Okay, it's all right. So now the floor is yours, and you have 15 minutes to present your work. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm gonna skip my presentation. Working with land use change and ecosystem services, we thought how we could communicate the effect of territorial transformation. So we tried to explicit them in monetary terms. Ecosystem services approach is gaining more and more space in the international debate, both in the research field and among decision and policy makers. Their assessment and protection are recognized as compulsive and necessary in order to pursue sustainable development goals as defined by the United Nations. Nevertheless, their conservation depends very much on action taken at each institutional level and on the ability to report the negative impacts or positive outcomes resulting from individual transformation choices. That's why we decided to test the methodology developed by Costanza for the global level on the Basilicata region, considering land use changes occurred during about the last 13 years. The study area covers about 10,000 square kilometers for less of 600,000 inhabitants. It's one of the Italian regions with the lowest population density and the highest depopulation rate. From 1990, most of the increase of artificial areas occurred in the nearby of the most important urban settlement. New urbanization have also affected coastal areas driven by touristic activities. Some other changes, visible at this scales, of course, concern some reclassification in bare lands of some mountaintop areas along the Apennine chain. Analyzing land use change derived from core inland cover, it emerged that most of transition involved the increase of arable lands, shrubs and bare lands, and the reduction of agricultural mosaic, woods and forests. By the mean of the software Idrisi, we could take note of all kinds of this transition. And for example, we found that 50% of lost wooded areas were interested by one of agricultural class, and that the most of new bare lands comes from shrubland and grassland. Significant, relevant are also the transition from agricultural mosaic to arable land. Let's focus, for example, on this last kind of change into monoculture. What does this mean for us? Obviously, an increase in food production and in food security, probably also driven by the European Agricultural Common Policy. But our question is, how can we translate this change in terms of ecosystem services? Some of them will grow, while there will be some territorial components suffering for this transition. We asked, is there a way to make a synthesis about this kind of transformation? So we tried to test the monetization as an approach able to summarize complex dynamics and processes and make them understandable for a large slice of stakeholders. We, according to Costanza method, aggregate our land use classes in the biomes he classified, And we translate all changes occurred throughout the territory of the Basilicata region in monetary values. In this picture, you can see in green the profitable changes, and in red transition that were disadvantageous. I remark disadvantageous or profitable according to Costanza, to Robert Costanza. Okay, if we read this number in relative terms, we can see that some of these polygons correspond to an annual loss in the capacity of providing ecosystem services of almost 4 million euro, while aggregating these polygons at the municipal level, we have an idea about who wins and who loses from these transitions. Maybe this outcome become more relevant if we compare them with an indicator, an index of the richness of local population, considering population data provided by the National Statistical Institute and GDP data from Eurostat. So we find that even if most of the municipalities suffer from a decrease of ecosystem services value, just for few of them, this decrease is very significant, relevant in comparison with the municipal GDP. Okay, then we made another assessment by considering the ecosystem services value referred to the year 2018. So the actual situation, we can say. The first map represents the total ecosystem services value per hectare. So what if we could consider this amount of money as a unitary transformation cost? What if we could assess in this way the exact amount of money to be reinvested in order to balance the ecosystem services provision lost by transformation? Okay, the second map is another taunt, another provocation, we can say. If we divide this total amount of money for the residential population in each municipality, we found that there are municipalities in which ecosystem services values is twice than GDP. So there is a perspective in which we people from inner areas are recognized as rich because of the beautiful landscape, the wide woodlands, the high quality of natural habitats, and so on. I'm coming toward the conclusion. We work to find an indicator able to summarize gain and losses in ecosystem services following transition or also territorial transformation. Express these complex processes obviously imply to make some consideration on the work scale and on the suitability of each assessment methodology to the working scale. And in this, I refer also to the work of Professor Breutmann. Numbers found for the Basilicata region are not very reliable, since the methodology developed by Costanza result from market system demand for ecosystem services and instances relevant at the global level. Nevertheless, they allow us, in this occasion, to open a debate concerning how local communities are aware about the implication of each transformation, or maybe about their complex and overall natural capital. Thanks for your attention. I'm going to
thank you.
Ask my presentation.
Thank you very much, Angela, again for your second presentation today.
Thank you.
I don't know if we have any question for the audience. any hand raised. I think there is a hand that is, yes. There is a question in YouTube, as I can see here in the chat, that is saying, where did you get your spatial data? Was it from Copernicus monitoring program? I think this question is for you.
Yes, about the land use, we used Corinne Lencover. I can't hear you very clear, actually. Corinne Lencover was the information layer on which we worked, and other economic and about population data were derived from Statistical Institute, national and European.
Okay, so we cannot interact with this audience because it's in YouTube, but I hope this question was replied. So we have, I think, 2 hands raised. That is Danny raised his hand, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, just a comment. Okay, what I have to say about that kind of account of ecosystem service account, I have said that in my presentation.
Yes.
So it's okay, we are agree. But I think that this kind of presentation is a good opportunity to try to discuss how we can do this better. On one hand, we can only dream to have the quantity of citations that Constanza has, of course.
Yes.
But on the other hand, I think that this kind of things, this kind of studies, maybe in some way they can obscure more than they enlighten. And this is the danger, because if we talk about ecosystem services as something big that and we don't specify what really we are talking about, first of all, it is a problem. In addition to that, when we talk about cultural services or people preferences, maybe, for example, that those people that live in municipalities which are rich in nature, in ecosystem services values, maybe they consider themselves as poor. Maybe they want shopping malls, for example.
Yes, of course.
Or things
That's
like
the
that.
point.
So, I think this is a very good opportunity to discuss this kind of things and try to see how we can make a step forward.
Yes. In my opinion, it's essential to define the demand of ecosystem services, previously respect their monetization. Why? Because, for example, I found that the unitary values that Costanza assigned to urban environment, urban biome, is very high. Higher than some natural or natural biome. For example, this is a classical situation that does not match with, for example, the situation from the Basilicata region, where new urbanization are not driven but are really an actual need for residential. So obviously, I totally agree with you. We have to define a scale, a working scale, before trying to assess ecosystem services.
Thank you. Thank you. I really like and really enjoy this discussion, because it's a topic that I like to work with. That is this cultural aspect and how to monetize and how to put a value to cultural ecosystem services. That, from my perspective, is a wrong approach, or not the only approach that has to be taken in consideration. And I remember you said about they are rich because they have beautiful landscapes. Sometimes we tend to, it is my perception, of course, we tend to put an economic value to everything. And I just want to put a dot saying that we have to accept that not everything can be value. And if, departing from this principle, we can make a step forward, considering other ways of valuing but an ecosystem services, specifically the cultural ones, without considering the economy itself. Yes.
I agree with you, but monetize is a language speaking everywhere. I want to say that, for example, population from the Basilicata region cannot negotiate the transformation of landscape due to renewable energy plants, farms, because they didn't know how to make a value to that beautiful landscape. So officially they were taken, nothing were taken from them because they didn't assign a value to that landscape.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know if we have any more questions, because I think that Liliana was raising the hand, but now I cannot see it anymore. So I guess
Yes.
she's okay.
Yes, raise your hand. Actually, now, do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You mentioned now the monetizing of the land change and the land use change, and also now you discussed, that when you monetize something that it's not the same, but this is the only way, to make, things tangible in a way and to be able to monitor it. Somehow I missed that moment how you monetize the land use change. But also what is interesting in this sense is that since you monetize this, have you been thinking about to look at the municipality that are within the scope of this study? What were the costs? For example, for the health services, were there some changes? And in that sense, and also the budgets of the itself of the municipalities, and also as a third issue, you could discuss whatever order you would like, or if you were thinking about those issues. The third issue is about the spatial plans of the municipalities. How much are you satisfied with how this ecosystem services issue is integrated within the spatial plans of the municipalities, or the regional plan, or something like that? Okay, we heard that you've done this. We are missing actually this landscape planning because of the wind turbines and everything. But if you could discuss some of these issues, if you were thinking about it, or if it's interesting for your study. Thank you.
Yes, actually this work was a first step, a first test, because we used as a methodology to monetize the Costanza work developed at the global scale. So absolutely not suitable for the regional scale. We would transfer, we would communicate some kind of territorial values that are often not assumed as actual values in planning processes and in spatial planning. This is the reason why I said it's a provocation. They are not reliable, just to open a debate of how rich we are and how poor we are when we negotiate against who wants transformation. Thank you, Liliana.
Thank you for explanations.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So I don't know if we have like a couple of more minutes. If there is any question,
David, not a question.
We can. Or a debate if you want, of course, to.
Just to go in the debate, following the line that was already started by Breutmann, by Danny. This is the case where you put a lot of effort in making a measure, and at the same time you know that the measure is absolutely wrong or inexpressive, or something that is based on several of local assumptions that, compared to the parameter that you are adopting in order to assess values, money, and so on, you are losing from the beginning. But it is an exercise that goes in the stream that also Angela mentioned before. That when you speak the language of monetizing things, you have a way to compare them with the common issues and common practices. So it remains a way to transfer the elaboration that we can produce concerning ecosystem services in a common local management practices, which is our final goal and our definitive effort, and also a way to compare the results from Basilicata with the results of Sardinia, with the results of everywhere else, in order also to assess that comparisons that Angela claims we are richer or poorest at the end. This is an issue that politicians, decision makers cares. European cohesion policy is based on GDP, which is an indicator, which is a fake indicator of the richness of a region, no? Which is really an abstraction, full of errors, full of structural errors in the measurements. But at the end, it is the indicator through which hundreds of millions of euros are spent in European regions every year, every period of programming period, and so on. So the effort to going through the monetization of ecosystem services is something that has to remain a common research field, because it's the way, the concrete way in which we can transfer the results that we achieve in current practices, in my view.
Okay. Do we have any response to these comments?
Yeah, may I say something?
Yes, of course.
Okay. No, I agree with Francesco. I agree that if we can monetize something, of course it is better. It is more comfortable. We can compare. It is definitely good if we are able to do so. I guess that there are cases in which probably we cannot do this, but we can do things that make things comparable. Maybe we can compare, as I try to argue, a ton of carbon against another ton of carbon, or a cubic meter of water against another cubic meter of water, or things like that. Or maybe a degree more or less in the temperature, in the average temperature of an area, or something like that. And I guess that if we manage to find which kind of ecosystem services can be expressed using different units, maybe we can do something. I'm not sure that this is the solution. I'm not sure that this will be acceptable for everyone. But at least I guess that we can make a kind of catalog, at least to say, okay, if we are talking about this type of ecosystem services with characteristics A, B, and C, we can talk about this unit, for example. Other types, other units, or things like that. I think that this could be something that could advance us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for these comments. And I just say, popping up in the discussion, I really agree with this approach of maybe using another units and other ways of measuring. I'm thinking, for example, in the capacity of relaxation of a beach or a forest, how you measure this economically, and it's a cultural ecosystem services. So we have to introduce another parameters and another ways of measuring things that go beyond the economic value. But maybe why not to focus in the human well-being? How much contributes to human well-being this condition of the habitat or this ecosystem? And how degraded is this ecosystem, and how this degradation can influence the human well-being. So pass for having a fully economic focus to have a let's say multi-measure with different parameters to value. I think it's a good perspective. Thank you for that. Yeah. I I really agree with that. Yeah.
Yes, of course. Monetization could be just one of them.
Yeah.
One of the indicator, one of the measures. Yes, of course.
Okay, we are just in the edge. We just finished. We don't have more time. I would give just 1 minute if someone wants to say anything. If not, I will close the session and we can follow the other sessions that are running parallel at the time of our session. So, are you all
May I
happy?
say something very provocative?
Go ahead.
Maybe.
Yes, sure.
Maybe the reason that we are talking now using the computer and not together is another type of ecosystem services. The COVID, for example, or in general, zootonic, zoonotic, I never know. Okay, this kind of diseases are part of the biodiversity. No, we not necessarily enjoy from each type of ecosystem services. This is another thing that we need to take into account. But okay, at least we enjoy to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So yeah, thank you very much. I want to thank you all for contributing to this session, and also again for your adaptability to change your mind from a face-to-face conference to an online conference where there is a fully change of perspective and where the interaction among the participants is totally different. But I can only see benefits and from this change, that from the environmental point of view, the carbon footprint, it went so low that we couldn't imagine. And then another good thing is that we don't have to complain about the coffee, because we know the coffee in the conference is horrible. So we can have our own coffee at home, and we just can, enjoy our own.
But the food in Cagliari is very well.
Yeah, I know it's good. The food.
Very good.
Also the coffee, David.
No, of course. But okay,
I'm joking.
Maybe it was a bad example for Italy, but overall, I know that this is a common complaint in the conferences, the quality of the coffee. But I guess would not be the case. Would not be the case for Cagliari. This I agree. I agree with you. But anyway, thank you very much, and enjoy the new normal.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Okay.
Grazie, Angela. Io vedo collegato il professor Campagna, che è il prossimo chairman, quindi siccome abbiamo 3 minuti.
Just one sentence, no? I'm very grateful to Sabrina, who was the promoter of this session in the very beginning. We tried to do our best in collecting paper, in producing contribution, and so on. And so thanks also David, thanks Corrado for his support. I believe that according to our results and our discussion, we can invite Danny to join our group. Imagine that this workshop could become wider and reinforced in the next ICCSA conference. So publicly, then you already said okay. Okay.
Definitely.
And then
I suggest before closing the session that everybody switches on his camera, so we will take a nice screenshot of our session.
A screenshot group screenshot.
and also finally, I would ask to my colleague also to start thinking a way of promoting this debate also in other way. For instance, promoting some collection, a special collection in some journal, something like that, which is in our academic scope and could be a driver for stimulating additional debate and reinforcing also the results achieved until now. Okay, smile, take the picture, and go on with GeoDesign, which is another very interesting thing that we have to discuss.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Professor Campagna, eccoci.
Buonasera.
Allora, io sono l'assistente Gizi, quindi se avete problemi con le presentazioni o qualsiasi cosa fate riferimento a me, va bene?
Va bene, grazie.
Le lascio la parola, manca un minuto, siamo in tempo, in orario. Quindi mi muto.
I guess we should speak English, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can see, I mean, yeah, I think all the speakers are present. Some also, some other colleagues are attending. Welcome to everybody. So, the last, we know we are now doing virtual conferences, and some conferences this year have been cancelled, but some others are still ongoing, and virtual conference is a good surrogate, I believe. And in the last months, actually, we had several events relating to geodesign. We had the Digital Landscape Architecture Conference hosted by Harvard University at the beginning of June. We had 2 geodesign workshops related to that, and then we had last week, 3 geodesign workshop, international geodesign workshop within the international geodesign collaboration. So this session today kind of complete this rich framework of activity involving the geodesign community. We have a very dense program today, and we have 5 presentations. So 8 minutes per presentation, if you can. And if there are some urgent questions, we can answer maybe to 1 question after the presentation. Otherwise, I will try to keep, if we manage, although the time is quite limited, if we can, because the room will be used by other session, I understand now. So if we can manage to have 5 to 10 minutes at the end, it would be ideal. So to exchange a little bit more and discuss a little bit more. So I give the floor to the first presenter, my friend Ana Clara Mourão Moura, which presented a work done in Brazil. I believe is a rich number of co-authors, and I believe this is the work coming from the workshop held last December in Brazil, in Florianopolis, during the South American Geodesign Summit, which Chico Oliveira and Ana Clara organized last year.
Yes.
Please, Ana Clara, the screen is yours.
Are you seeing my screen? I had already shared it. Are you seeing it?
Yeah, we saw it.
Okay, so let's start. Good afternoon for you, good morning for the Brazilians. I will present this case study that was the workshop we had last December in Santa Catarina. It's a case study about an indigenous territory. This is the group that was there, and you can see some people that you know. So why they decided to do this case study? Because it's under conflicts of interest. The indigenous group met the white man just 100 years ago. But the area is an area that's called Itajaí Valley. And in this Itajaí Valley, it's an area of flood. And the federal government decided to construct a very big dam to control this flood. But they control the flood in Itajaí Valley, where there are important cities, but it caused a very big flood in indigenous territory. Some people died there, and their houses are almost all of them below the flood level. I put this picture here with the chief of the indigenous group because he's a very important man. And he himself was in our meeting, and it was an honor to receive him there. Before the workshop, I worked hard with the group of the civil defense to prepare the data. I had 2 months of hard work preparing everything with them. We decided to use multi-criteria analysis based on combinatorial analysis to produce the systems. The people that had already constructed a geodesign meeting know it's a lot of work to construct the systems. And to define the impact metrics, the targets, the costs, and all the extra data that we had to present to the workshop. And it was not easy because all of these products are based on judgments and opinions. An impact is something that it's a personal opinion, even if I am a technical person. And sometimes it happened that I was with the maps, with the systems already done, and someone that didn't take part in the previous meeting arrived and said, I don't agree with that. I don't agree that these are the areas that are feasible for proposals. So it was a hard work, and finally we arrived to the project. We used a Geodesign Hub during the meeting, during the workshop, and we were very honored to receive the group of indigenous and the civil defense to take part of the groups. Karl Steinitz himself conducted the workshop, and he decided to divide people in 6 groups. The group that lives down the dam, the group that lives in the indigenous part, but in the lower part and the upper part, non-adopter users, civil defense, and public administration. As it was a very big group, a lot of people, we divided the people in 2 rooms. I controlled one room, and Karl Steinitz controlled the other room. So we construct a first design, 6 teams, a second design, and 6 teams. And then we combined it, we joined the groups according to the rooms. The people that live in the upper part of the indigenous territory, the lower part, down the dam, and they construct one proposal. The other group that are non-adopters, civil defense, and public administration construct another design, another proposal. And then we arrived to the agreement in a discussion, in the very big discussion that finishing the workshop. I learned a lot with this opportunity, and it was very interesting to have these indigenous people with us. Because at the beginning, they didn't know what we were using. They don't use computers. They don't use technologies. They didn't know about the maps. Even there was a lady that is an indigenous person, this lady. She is from the indigenous group, and she's also from civil defense. She was our bridge with them. But we were using language that were not their languages. And he arrived there without understanding everything, but he was able to observe in a very respectable way. He controlled the language, and at the end, he was planning and he was deciding. So I learned a lot with him, observing him. You see, everybody is around him, and he is controlling the proposal. And it was nice to see this. I learned about wisdom with him. And the civil defense was very happy with the result, because before that meeting, they were not able to arrive to an agreement with the indigenous group. And from this meeting, they were able to negotiate a new road to evacuate people in case of emergency, meeting places for evacuation, and new places for residents. So we may say that it was a very successful meeting, a very successful geodesign case study. And I thank you. Oh, so I must go back to stop sharing. Mick, I stopped sharing.
Your microphone is muted, Mick.
Yes.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Was good.
Sorry, my microphone was. I have just a very quick question for you, Ana Clara.
Yes.
In the last international geodesign collaboration workshop we had last few weeks, we observed that there is a tendency. We normally, when we coordinate a workshop, we focus on consensus, because the end is reaching the consensus. But also we observed that there is a typical trend where going from the version 1 to version 2 to version 3 and then to the negotiation, there is an improvement in the quality of the design. Do you agree on that, based on this workshop and in your very broad experience?
What was the difficulty of this workshop? Only the indigenous group and the group of civil defense knew the area. So all the other participants were talking about things that they didn't know. They used the evaluation maps as a kind of a base map. So where it was said that it was feasible, they put their polygons, but they really didn't know what they were talking about. If the indigenous were not there, it was just an academic experiment without something that could be approved or could be useful. So the presence of this indigenous group made the difference.
Yeah, the difference between a research or a teaching workshop and a real world workshop with real stakeholder actually in this respect is very big, and is one of the probably the main point we should address in geodesign research. Okay, yeah. I will not take more time now because so I will go the screen to Danilo.
Okay.
Please, Danilo is presenting a paper also.
Hi all.
Co-authored by Ana Clara. Please share your screen, Danilo.
Okay. I'm sharing. Do you see my screen?
Yes. Just if you can make it bigger. Yeah.
Okay. Hi all. I'm Danilo, and this paper I made with the professor Ana Clara Moro. And we called it Aerial Images and 3D Models Generated by RPA to Support Geovisualization in Geodesign Workshop. I start with the context of this study. About 6% of Brazilian population is living in subnormal agglomerations. And in these places, it's normal to see the precarious conditions of household infrastructure. And it's also common to see areas inappropriate to housing, like step slopes, riversides, and others. And we made some case of studies in Belo Horizonte, and it's about 2.4 million inhabitants, and about 13% living in favelas, or the subnormal agglomerations. So our municipality started to use the geodesign methodology to talk with people, to use it as a citizen's participation in planning and decisions. So while we were doing this kind of workshops with the people of this kind of place, we saw some challenges in communication, special information with these people. We know that the evaluation maps is kind of difficult to understand because it's made by analysis of synthesis and high complex spatial analysis to do this kind of maps. So we tried to use the RPA, the remotely piloted aircraft, for improving the geovisualization, because we can create high resolution base maps, 3D models, take the aerial photos with oblique perspective. And we have also to highlight that this kind of product, this kind of work we can do with agility, low cost, and also high precision when you use it associated to GNSS receivers. We worked with the geovisualization concept, and we can say that we should contribute to patterns to identify and guide to new understanding. It's important that the visual representation actually like as a link between the reality and the mental maps to promote people interoperability. So we are working to create a kind of common language to arrive on shared decision and make possible to do the co-creation and co-design. So it's normal to work with zenithal perspective. It's the view from the maps, and people has the azimuthal perspective. So we are proposing to use also the oblique perspective. It means a kind of link between the zenithal and azimuthal perspective, and it can be done using 3D models, virtual reality with free navigation, and other kind of data. So I presented to you 3 cases of study. The first one is held in Dandara community, and it's a well-known study because it's already presented in other conference, but here I have to highlight our observations in this study. Dandara community is occupied in 2009, and there are more than 4,000 people living there today, and the municipality started to do the urban regularization to improve the housing there. So when we did this geodesign workshop with people of the place, we observed that people prefer to use the 3D models and digital maps. It's kind of obvious, but it's interesting to see how the youngs and also the adults prefer to use and understand it better, this data, than the normal maps. So from this study, we decided to do another one, and it's held in Conjunto Paulo VI district, and there are some irregular settlement there under a line of electric power, and also some housing area at the risks of landslide and other kind of problems there. And we worked with children from 5 to 12 years old. It was interesting because they are lay person in cartography, so we are trying to understand how they understand the maps. So I made a job with drone. I flew over this district, created the base map, 3D model, took some oblique aerial photos, and etc. And when we arrived to the workshop, we divided the children in 3 groups. So the first group worked just with the printed maps, the group B with printed maps and 3D models, and group C, the 3D model only. And we made some special reasoning questions to them. And the first one, it worked just on the basic level, and the third at the advanced level of spatial reasoning. And they had to understand the informations on the map and 3D model and answer the questions drawing in a blank sheet and draw the answer in the blank sheet. So the better result, it's from the group B in terms of scale, precision, position, and also motivation in participating of this kind of activity. So in order to validate this proposed methodology, we proposed another study in Confisco district, and we worked with people who don't know the area but know the digital tools. It was undergraduate and graduate students, and also people from public administration. And they worked trying to propose alternative future for the Confisco illegal settlements. And the result shows that it also enables experts to recognize the territory more effectively, not just laypersons. So it can give them a greater clarity to the context expressed in form of an evaluation map. So we are proposing to work with both data, the evaluation, the normal maps, and also 3D models and photos and another resource. Furthermore, it can help us also to select and represent data in better conditions in future workshops with people of the place. In order to conclude, I have just to highlight that the relevance of geovisualization resource to support geodesign workshops, especially in more needy communities. All the participants involved in the workshops must have the equivalent conditions to participate. So we have to understand the cartographic conventions not as an obstacle, but as a resource. So using the immersive navigation created by the 3D models, we can favor the recognition and our awareness, while the maps remains essential for thematization, synthesis, and planning. So we could see improvement on the ability to reason spatially, and it guided them to work creatively while they use spatial information to be purposeful during the workshop. And I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Danilo, and also Ana Clara, that is co-authored this paper and worked together with Danilo on this workshop. We have a little time, but I would like just to make one comment. Actually, Ana Clara is probably one of the person that run the highest number of workshop, and every time she experiment new thing, and the work she did with Danilo, I think is very interesting, because there are many ways to enrich the way we treat information, and we present information, we visualize information, depending also on who is our the participant at the workshop. And this, I think, is a very interesting case study. Thank you, Danilo. So
thank you.
I will. The next paper is from Francesco. Francesco, I'd like Francesco because he's very active in organizing this workshop. Please, Francesco.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here, for participating. Can you see my screen? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this paper reports an experience of geodesign workshop applied in a particular context. We developed in Potenza town, Potenza is the capital of Basilicata region, a workshop oriented to improve, to train decision makers facing new challenges deriving from new urban agenda application in urban development planning. In particular, cities, main capitals and main cities of European regions are asked to work on integrated territorial investments, which represents a municipality plan in which all the investments supported by the European funds are included in order to be realized under operative programming and the EU cohesion policy. So this is a very interesting scope of application of strategic planning, especially because there is a strict link between resources, economic resources, and the process of developing a urban strategy for urban growth and so on. Of course, this is the general framework, but the local implementation of this process sometimes is very, how can I say, far to have a comprehensive framework of understanding and of planning concerning urban development, especially urban sustainable development. Because first of all, decision makers, but also technicians working in public administration are really not suited to perform strategic planning. So the idea is to start a process of training, decision making, applying geodesign as a method of for realizing strategic negotiated planning at urban scales. So we can affirm that there is a huge demand for training concerning strategic planning. That's also the reason why planning disciplines today are really weakened in the general system of programming, investments, resources, and so on. So the territorial dimension of planning is the weakest point of this complex processes. But participatory planning represents a perspective in order to reinforce the role of our disciplines in organizing territorial transformation and urban growth. So our case study is the municipality of Potenza. We are working under the ITI planning, so Integrated Territorial Investment Procedure, promoted by EU, European Union operative programs. And I started my discussion with the administration showing some data coming from United Nations. This is a report from United Nations that definitively affirms the growth of world population, but especially the growth of world population that will live in cities. That's why the attention on cities and on sustainable development of cities is one of the key issues in the global agenda. And especially this report affirms that the population living in the city will grow, especially in the metropolitan cities and the metropolis city. It is cities with more than 5 million of habitats. This is a fact. But there is also another fact inside this affirmation, is that the rural population, it means that population that lives in cities with resident inhabitants lower than 500,000 of inhabitants, is almost static, will remain in a quite static situation. Probably they will suffer depopulation, and this is the condition of the most group of cities, not only in peripheral areas like Basilicata region, but in many other places of the world, where of course the investment will be not so suitable like those that will take place in metropolitan areas. So it is a problem, and we have also to focus on this problem. Concerning the international reference of our studies, we look at a new urban agenda promoted by United Nations, which is a synthesis of relevant topic that up-to-date planning has to consider in order to reply to actual demands that comes from citizens. This list of 15 categories is really challenging for planners. For instance, the attention to gender questions, to youth, to climate change, to human rights. When you are going to deliver an urban plan is something that is really stimulating and requires new and additional tools in order to achieve results. So we are in a situation under new urban agenda principle that planning goes toward governance. We doesn't need formal planning in which we draw a map of the future development of the cities, and this map is almost static. The update is very difficult to achieve, and so on. But we are in a process, and the governance of this process of transforming and developing cities has to be considered as the most important time in planning practices. So we have to look at plan performance of the systems, and we have to assess those performance ongoing. And we have to drive the process in an inclusive, equitable, and effective way. This is additional requirements that, from my point of view, are really crucial in the process. And I propose those requirements to my audience during the workshop under these questions. How to build a vision for the future of a city. Of course, literature could report us many and qualified point of view, in order to approach to this huge and complex problem. But what we proposed in the workshop is a basic learning by doing application, and we didn't provide any solution for this problem, but we proposed a methodology to adopt in order to build a common vision of the city, of Potenza town in this case. And the audience really appreciated this starting approach. So the workshop was organized in one day. one-day workshop, morning and afternoon sessions. The participant was local political representatives, so politicians that are seated in the council of the town that participated, both belonging to the majority and the minority party. And then we had also municipality technicians, which are people that works under the scope of EU programs and providing a document, technical document, and so on. And then we had a group of students coming from my courses at engineering faculties that supported us a lot, and especially supported me in preparing the background knowledge that is needed in order to perform geodesign workshop effectively. This is also another added value of the case study, because the municipality of Potenza was included in the climate adaptation partnership, which is a partnership promoted by the EU Commission in order to stimulate and facilitate the new proposal of urban agenda for the next programming period of EU cohesion policy. So they are how can I say, the city of Potenza participated to a group of cities and European institutions discussing issues connected with climate change and the sustainable urban development. And our workshop was officially included in this framework of international cooperation as a stage of political academy. In this climate adaptation partnership, the need to train politicians arose, and a geodesign workshop was considered as a mean in order to support this process of empowering decision makers towards sustainable urban development. Okay, the system considered in the specific case study of Potenza are quite close to the system proposed in the International Geodesign Collaboration Framework, but of course regards the specific features that Potenza shows as a critical point, for instance, water management, green management, and so on, and are suitable categories that could be considered as intervention in the framework of ITI. So are categories in which projects could be financed by the European structural funds in the next programming period. We phases the description of those systems through the production of some posters that are coherent with geodesign land suitability analysis, so proposes the 5 colors, green, light green, dark green, and so on, proposed by assumed by geodesign as a common classification of the territory, showed some specific pictures that represents criticality according to the specific system. In this case, water management, you can see some flooding areas and some criticalities recognizable through the picture, because it is very important for common people to directly identify the issues that you are dealing with, and are connected with the specific places on the map that represent where the project has to be drawn in order to solve that criticalities. After that, a huge effort had been put in order to propose also actions and to highlight costs for specific categories of action, because the operational approach needs that at the end of the story you have to know in order to decide how much money you need in order to face some specific goals and objectives of the discussion. So for each system, a comprehensive poster has been developed, and students helped participants in order to go in details of those elaboration to understand better the process. The workshop development was quite linear, coherent with the general indication deriving from Steinitz geodesign framework and so on. The level of participation was quite good, and especially decision maker was quite proactive during the workshop, because it puts on the table their personal ideas concerning the places and the topic of the discussion. The students was good moderators, because they are curious to understand the position of decision makers, and so they were there simulating the discussion and so on. Technicians was instead quite not active but involved in the process, probably because they suffer the pressure of the presence of politicians in the room, so they didn't express their point of view in a complete way. Okay, going to some final consideration concerning the experiences, we have first of all to reaffirm again that geodesign represents a robust framework to support decision making in urban and regional planning, and we recognize that also its horizontal applicability to huge scope of planning issues. For instance, in this case, we have not a traditional planning procedure to be performed, but an innovative planning procedures that includes also a multi-level governance approach and so on. So if we consider some classification that after the International Geodesign Collaboration Conference in 2019 was recognized in the group of participants, we may say that this experience belongs to the multi-participant workshop style engagement, orienting to show the methodological advantages of geodesign methods, and starting a learning by doing process with local decision maker groups in order to face in future real case application. The level of personal learning was quite good. It was not monitored, for instance, by a specific survey during or at the end of the workshop, but the positive remarks that was collected in the debriefing session at the end of the day was very positive and very encouraging. And especially it was evident that participants expressed a quite evident understanding of the geodesign taxonomy. They recognize a system, they recognize a design, they recognize a diagram. So they effectively, at the end, understood the main category and the main stages of the process. So it is positive. Then the problem that is so defined wicked problems. It means that the participant didn't understood clearly, the hierarchy of the problems that was selected at the very beginning when the background knowledge was delivered before the workshop. It is really a critical point of view. It means that each politician, each decision maker comes there with his perception of the problem scoring, and sometimes it was not really compatible with the selection that allowed us to deliver land suitability analysis for the selected system in geodesign workshop. So probably more attention and also more time has to be dedicated to the selection of the starting problems on which the specific strategic planning has to be delivered at the end. Finally, I want to state that this affirmation, the acceptability of geodesign method was demonstrated. It means that we faced people without any experiences concerning geodesign, without specific knowledge concerning urban and regional strategic planning under the methodological point of view or the literature concerning those features. We faced people with a very structured knowledge of the place because they are administrators of the city, so they have their idea, their backwards idea of the city, of the problems that has to be tackled, and the geodesign was accepted as a method. Even if, as I said, the problems hierarchy is not exactly the same that the measure or some assessors has concerning the idea of delivering a strategic planning, the geodesign method was accepted by the participants. And it is encouraging for us as a researcher to go in the direction of performing geodesign as a robust methodology in order to perform strategic planning for urban design. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you. I think your critical review of your work, of your design workshop, is very interesting. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, so I give the floor very quickly to Chiara Mazzarella, who is presenting a work developed with Maria Cerretta and Maria Somma as well. Please, Chiara.
Thank you, Michele. Good evening, everybody. Can you see my screen?
Yes, please go.
Okay, perfect. Yes, I will present this work carried out with Professor Maria Cerreta and my colleague Maria Somma about opportunities and challenges of a geodesign-based platform for waste management in the circular economy perspective. This study starts from... I hear something. No. Okay. Yes, start from the frame of the REPAIR project. REPAIR stands for Resource Management in Peri-Urban Areas. The main objective of the project was to operationalize circular economies through integrated strategies. And while circular economy is a concept easily applicable to industrial ecology and to supply chain management, it is still not so clear how to implement it in so-called circular city, and the debate is open to understand what are the main criteria to consider for a circular city. But in REPAIR, we started from considering resources, and mainly waste flows and waste lands, because waste flows optimization in a territorial system, of course, can have positive impacts both in input and output of urban metabolism of the system by recycling, reusing. And also we added the concept of wastegapes, that is an extension of wastelands that also are considered the resource of cities that can be recovered and help circular economy implementation. Our main materials in Naples unit was waste flows. In this presentation, I will talk about a small about construction and demolition waste and wastelands, that our focus area is full of that. The main framework of the project is constituted of 3 columns. On the left side, the green one is the methodology of peri-urban living labs that by involving some clusters of local actors, university, Campania region, and other stakeholders, we carried out a series of living labs to co-explore and after design, produce, and the co-decision until the co-decision phase. In the first step, to understand wastegate and waste flows, and then to map wastegapes and to identify the main objectives that so-called eco-innovative solutions should cope with. But at the same time, in this framework, we considered the impact assessment of the waste flow supply chains. In the right side of the framework is not so good resolution in this presentation, but well, these are the steps of the life cycle assessment that we carried on the waste flows. Also considering place-based indicators, so is territorial life cycle assessment, we can say. And all this data we produced converged in this new tool that has been developed by the WP2 team, the GDSE, the Geodesign Decision Support Environment. That is a GIS-based platform where the geodesign process is the structure to carry on a living lab to, in the end, elaborate collaborative strategies. We compared, in this case, the GDC with the Geodesign Hub, because Geodesign Hub is one of the most common platform for geodesign workshop. And well, the main difference between the two tools is that Geodesign Hub work on spatial planning, while GDSE focused mainly in a second phase on the urban metabolism management. So the input data are different. We have evaluation maps in the Geodesign Hub, and we have some study area maps and an activity-based material flow analysis as input. The process is similar, not the same, of course, but quite similar, following the structure of the geodesign process. And in the end, we have different results, land use maps from Geodesign Hub, and some strategies and flow assessment for the GDSE. And well, this is a screenshot from the platform. We can see that is structured in different sections: study area, status quo, target setting, strategy elaboration, and in the end conclusion. The maps of the study area are the wastelands, the wastegapes I mentioned you in the beginning. That here in the legend we can see some of the wastegapes that have been mapped by our unit, but in collaboration with people and the local stakeholder that was part of the peri-urban living labs. After, in the second step, we have a knowledge of the waste flows on our focus area. Our focus area is the northern Naples and part of the city of Naples. This is just a sample to understand how is visualized the activity-based material flow analysis. This is for construction and demolition waste. And it is interactive. It means that when we pass with the arrow on the map, we can know who is the origin, the destination of that flow, and the quality of the flow, what kind of flow is it, and the amount for a year. And these are the base. And yes, we also have a Sankey diagram to understand more quickly what are the cluster of activities that produce each flow, and to after work on this. In another step, we can in the GDSE we can have a ranking of objectives that are presented in the beginning, and after setting in the living lab we can set flow indicators. I mean, I have mixed inert waste. The stakeholder involved can set how much they want to decrease, increase, or if they want to keep it at the current level. And to obtain the result, in the system, there are the eco-innovative solutions that can be combined in the other section to create a strategy. The strategy can be implemented in a specific area of the case study, And so that combination of eco-innovative solution will be implemented just in this area. This is just an example, but of course, people of the place who knows the municipalities can select them with their criteria. But in these strategies, wastegapes cannot be interactive. We cannot make some land use function planning. We just can have in the end, as a result, a difference of in terms of flow assessment of how our strategy improve or not the current scenario of waste, of urban metabolism of waste in that area. And that's why we were looking at studying the geodesign hub structure.
I have to ask you to go to the conclusion because we are running out of time.
To understand here comparison of the systems, because combining the geodesign hub structure with the GDSC would be really useful from our point of view to have an holistic approach to circular city management and have a negotiated design not only on waste flows but also on wastegate regeneration, because in the end wastegate can be considered as part of the evaluation maps and the systems that can be managed in a combined process. So in the end, circular economy is an opportunity to conciliate competitive objectives of economic, environmental, and social benefits. And it can be described as a hierarchy of objectives based on the value-focused thinking approach for widening the decision context and exploring the consistency of the decision maker purposes and the strategic decision context. And that's why in the integration between the geodesign hub maps management and the GDSC process, we could combine actually these opportunities of each of the two approaches to have a decision support system suitable to making operative circular economy and circular city.
Thank you, Chiara.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're running out of time. Sorry if I rush, but we have just 10 minutes left. I will give the floor directly to Ana Clara for the last presentation, which is actually very interesting. It's a new platform, an alternative new platform that Ana Clara and Christian Freitas developed specifically.
Are you seeing my screen?
Yep, please go.
Okay, so let's start. This is a work that was the product of a PhD thesis by Christian Rezende, and we developed the Brazilian platform of geodesign based on SDI and WebGIS. As you know, geodesign is a process of co-creation based on geo-collaboration. We developed 35 case studies in Brazil. And in all of them, we applied questionnaire and observed the difficulties we had in these experiments. So we collected some critics about the framework. That's a very good framework, but in our case studies, people presented some critics about them. Representation models and process models were never enough to people. Evaluation models were seen as a personal judgment, even if constructed by an expert. Change models had always problems in scale and lack of details so that people could understand more and select them. Impact models are based on evaluation models, and only special impacts are considered. Decision models, that when we arrive to final decision, discussions and opinions are not registered, and there is lack of individual opinion. So, to our point of view, sometimes we arrive to unclear consensus at the end of the workshop. Because of that, we started to study the technologies of geoinformation, geospatial technologies from the beginning to arrive to some keywords. we recognized some keywords that were that was since the beginning. And we decided to use these keywords that are processors, GIS, geovisualization, citizens participation, and geodesign to construct our method, our framework, and our platform that is based on an SDI, spatial data infrastructure, where people can use the data, but also feed this platform with metadata catalog or use new data from web map services. So the keywords for us are SDI, WebGIS, co-creation, and dialogues. We changed something more. Instead of working with systems that are variable, for example, agriculture, infrastructure, transport, and so on, we decided to work with contexts that are more related to values. For example, when I say here in my right, housing, I have infrastructure there. But also production we need to talk about infrastructure. When I talk about environment, I talk about landscape, but I also have to talk about landscape when I'm talking about culture. So when we change from system to context, we are talking about territories, powers, region, identity, landscape, perception, location, and experience. So it's more complex. So this is the face of our platform. This is the last case study that we developed in a favela here in Brazil. And we proposed a framework that follows 4 steps. I go directly to each of them because we don't have so much time. The first one is reading enrichment. How it works. I present an SDI with a good amount of data. People read this data, read the territory. They can add extra data using web map services or even from the metadata catalog. But they don't just read the data. They contribute with annotations that are these little points. These annotations are alerts, extra data, extra information that I didn't have. So in the format of a crowdsourcing, they enrich the reading experience of the territory. The second step is about proposing ideas. So people draw polygons, and they have to do a very good descriptions of these polygons, of these ideas. After drawing the polygons, everybody can write comments, what we call dialogues, to all the ideas. At the end, we have a lot of comments to each idea, so it's a dialogue, sharing opinions, suggestions, and further information about. And we do this in a circle. How it is? I select groups. Everybody is put in a condition in which he is an expert or has an interest in a thematic. So the very first ideas that he presents or that he comments are ideas about thematics that he really knows. So based on Delphi method, if I read something written or proposed by someone that's an expert in a thematic, I consider it. So we work in cycles, changing the context according to the experience of the people using Delphi method to define proposals and to comment ideas in the dialogue. The third step is the voting. People vote. The votes are individual. We can discuss together, but when we vote, we must vote as an individual. And the fourth step is the final decision, in which we apply an ETL script to count the votes. Those polygons that had less than 40% of the likes, they are not approved. Those that have over 60% are automatically approved. These cuts of percentage can be defined by the coordinator. And those that are from 40 to 60%, they must be reviewed. To review, we have some tools that give support to us. These tools can be used at any time of the workshop, but they are especially important in this time when we are going back to some decisions, when we are discussing again some polygons that were not approved or even disapproved in the first step. These tools are the dashboard and the calculation of similarities. The dashboard is a dynamic dashboard based on dynamic cartography. What it is? If I zoom in the map, the data will present the calculation of those data that are in the screen. So it's dynamic. I can select whatever I want to present as a support, graphics, numbers, maps, anything. I can construct a dashboard to give support to this decision. There is also the tool of interoperability, where people can download or upload data at any time in many formats: shapefile, GeoJSON, libkml, database, anything. So the sense of interoperability, that I can choose the platform I prefer to use in parallel with our platform, is there. And there is also another ETL tool that calculates the similarities. When I'm judging a polygon, I can receive information that there are some polygons that are similar to this, that had already been approved, and I can check which are the similarities presented in the polygons. We can also use word clouds to see what people are talking about the proposals. What are the main observations? And there, with these word clouds, I can understand why the polygon was not approved. Generally, there are three reasons: lack of information, lack of details that I can feel secure to vote, technical problems, questions about technical problems with the proposal, or problems with scale, problems with place. So these word clouds help us to understand why the proposal was not approved in the first round. So we are in the very first year of the platform. We had conducted 2 big case studies in this period of this COVID time, in which we have to work using web conference. The first case study was about quadrilateral ferrífero, a very complex area. I had almost 40 people working in web platforms and constructing an agreement. The second case study was in a favela. I was surprised to see that even very poor people that don't have the capacity of using computers, they were able to use our platform. But we keep investing in it because it's the very first year. I really hope that in a close future we can get together to do an experiment. I may say that each case study has its demands and its needs, and we are able to construct new ETL tools that will be improved according to this case study, because we don't believe in one framework with these rigid steps. We tested the same framework for 2 times, using also the drone captured as Danilo presented today. And we were successful in these 2 case studies. We understand that we have to improve some geovisualization tools, but I may say that we are happy with these first results. And we applied questionnaires to people to know their suggestions to the improvement of the platform. So I thank you.
Thank you, Ana Clara. I'm afraid this, for sure, all this presentation and also this one is very interesting. The last one could have required more time for discussion, but unfortunately, I'm afraid we have to leave the room to the next session. And I actually apologize. We are actually stalled already 2 minutes. Sarah, please,
yes,
give us direction. Is the next session ready?
I think, Francesco, are you here?
Okay,
yes, I'm here.
Case, I would like to thank Sarah for assisting us and all the presenter, and Francesco and Ana Clara for promoting this workshop. And what I can do with no time left more is just, I see there are several attendees, so please feel free to read the paper, contact the authors, and stimulate the discussion further. Again, thank you, everybody, and I apologize to the next session.
Thanks, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Hope seeing you again in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michele. Thank you, Ana Clara.
Thank you. See you.
Ana Clara, we have to discuss about this.
Yes, I'm available to experiment with all of you together in a close future.
Yes, absolutely. Let's try to organize some online session. We are really interested, you know.
Yes, see you soon. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Ok Francesco, tanto insomma
Io
hai
adesso-
visto come gestiamo. Entro le 7:30 dobbiamo finire. E niente, ti lascio la parola, se ci sono problemi sono qua.
Sì. Va bene. Michele, dai, ci teniamo in contatto. Questa cosa di Anaclara è interessante.
Sì, molto.
Molto. Ok.
Ciao ciao.
Ciao. So, hello participants in the next session of the general track. I believe we have some speakers already connected. Diogo? Okay. Then Giuseppe Giordano is one of the next speaker, I don't know.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Very good. Actually, you are the two presenters connected. We may wait a few minutes. Because if other participants doesn't come, we may start and probably we may stop earlier. Okay. I have to say in advance that I'm not an expert in the field, but they asked me to to help you in this session, to coordinate this session. So feel free also to take some minute more because we are not all presenters. And if you're okay, we may also start. Diogo.
Yes, that's okay. But
I cannot hear you very well. Probably the volume of your microphone. Or if you can speak louder.
Listen.
Not very well.
Not very well.
Try to speak louder or to stay closer to the microphone. That's the reason.
It's mute, the microphone.
And now, that's okay?
Better. Okay.
Oh,
So,
that's okay.
you can start, Diago.
Thank you. But now, hello, and I present the article and BDF, a convergence analysis of a multi-step method applied to an vacuum diffusion equation in 1D. And this method presents a convergence analysis of the BDF ATM method and the constants and the stability analysis. This method is based on the Hopmock method, can benefit from parallel computing, which is currently a crucial characteristic in the modern multi-score architecture. The Hopmock method employs 3 different techniques similar to the hopscotch method. And the Hopmock method divides the set of unknowns into 2 subsets alternately, approximate. Thus, the method divides each time step into 2 same steps. It's in the that's a problem.
Diego, what's the problem?
The problem in the presentation.
Okay. It's your computer?
Yes, my computer.
Okay.
That's okay. Well, yeah, it's okay. the novel method numerical, and Hopmack and backward differential formulas resulted yielded by several numerical methods and to apply it to convection, advection equation in G. And the BDF ATM method is based on the two conjuncts and in the figure, but more specifically, the first time step updates of subsets of null using an explicit method approach, since the second implicit time same steps use the solution calculated in the previous time same step. No linear system is solved. Moreover, the method evaluates same steps along with a characteristic line, employing concepts of the modified methods of characteristics. Especially, the method Hopmock method uses approximate solutions from previous time steps along the directional derivative, following the characteristic line compatible to the MMOC. Therefore, the Hopmock method employs a semi-Lagrangian approach. Moreover, the method uses a Eulerian structure, but the discrete equations come from a Lagrangian frame of reference. More precisely, the Hopmock method implies a special discretization along a characteristic line from each mesh node. The method is a first order operator in space and time. And in this numerical method, convergent into the numerical solution approximates the analytical solutions of the partial equations when delta x tends to 0. And the constant basis on Taylor series patience of terms required a number of simplifications. And in this slide, we show the two same steps of the BDF ATN method. The consistency in this method is, the completed method is showing this figure, and only steps for the solver if we use this method. And the consistency analysis consider a discretization and expand each terms in the Taylor series. And the error of this method is present in this slide. And consider this expression and more specifically, the local truncation error must tend to 0 and delta x tends to 0 for discretization to be constant with the partial differential equation using technique employed in this paper. This study safely allows us to conclude that R minor 1 and therefore the sufficient consistency condition for the BDF ATN method is that delta t tends to 0 faster than delta x tends to 0 in the one of the terms. And stability von Neumann, this technique is based on the composition of operators to prove the stability of a second order time multi-step methods. This strategy uses to von Neumann stability analysis and determines the stability or instability of a finite difference method approximation. In a finite difference approximation, a solution of the finite difference equation is expanded in a Fourier series, and introduces that this operator delta H in the von Neumann stability, and proof that this method based on von Neumann stability analysis, that this we conclude that the BDF ATM is stable. Consider and be writing one of these terms and prove that the eigenvalue is minor with 1 with the based von Neumann stability. And the conclusion is this: the BDF ATM method integrates the Hobmock method and backward differential formulas. This constancy and stability analysis the BDF method, confirming that BDF ATM method is convergent. And in particular, the use of backward difference formulas did not improve the accuracy of the standard Hobmock method. The BDF method is the first order accurate in space and time. And we tend to study this method in conjunction with total variation diminishing techniques and the flux limiting procedures to improve the accuracy results. That's okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Is there any question about Diogo's speech? Okay, Diogo, help me, give me some additional information. These methods, in which field of application could be reliable and effectively applied?
Diego, you are muted.
Yes, you are muted.
Sorry. And applications with and Burger's equations and fluid dynamics and others applications.
Also fluid dynamics.
Yes. In the 1D case is more specific, but in 2D is better, and 3D and the others dimensions. But in 1D is the proof to the convergence is more simple, but in 2D is the mathematics is more advanced and the paper is limited and no more than 10 pages.
Yeah, okay, the space is not enough to describe, of course. Okay, okay, thank you very much. So we may go to Giuseppe Giordano.
Yes.
Okay. User-friendly expressions of the coefficients of some exponential fitted methods. Okay.
Now I
share your screen.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, so now we will describe the paper user-friendly expression of the coefficient of some exponentially fit method. This work is written by me, Giuseppe Giordano, and Professor Diana Conte, Raffaele D'Ambrosio, Livio Chisaru, and Beatrice Paternoster. The outline that we describe is exponential fitting procedure, the introduction of C and S function, the reformulation of a coefficient of some exponential fitting method, and a check on the effectiveness of the approach. We start to introduce the exponential fitting procedure. In particular, exponential fitting is a mathematical procedure to generate numerical method for different problems with a pronounced oscillatory or hyperbolic behavior. Usually, this technique is occurring in interpolation, quadrature, and numerical solution of first and second differential equation. The principal idea is that we determine the coefficient of the numerical method by asking that the method is exact for the set of this function that we call fitting space, where this parameter mu is can be real or imaginary, and omega is the frequency of the oscillatory or hyperbolic function. A generic coefficient is this form, where it depends on the parameter zeta, small zeta, where zeta is the product by omega and h, where h is the step size. Often this coefficient exhibits the indeterminate form 0 over 0 when 0 is small, so when 0 tends to 0. And in order to restore the convergence of the corresponding numerical method when zeta is small, it is necessary to make use of the Taylor series of the coefficient. So for an accurate computation of this coefficient requires the knowledge of 4 different formula. One for small zeta, one for big zeta, for each trigonometrical and hyperbolic fittings. The advantage of this procedure that we will describe is to eliminate the indeterminate form 0 over 0. It is easy to program, and the reformulation of this coefficient replaced the 4 formula by a single formula. So we introduce the C and S function. That we have the following expression, and in particular this coefficient is a function of big zeta, where it is equal to plus or minus small zeta squared. In particular, this coefficient depends on the parameter big zeta, and the value of zeta in 0. It is calculated as follows. The expression, the method have two steps. In particular, we write f bar of small zeta as equal to zeta power k multiplied by f of zeta. And f zeta have this form, and so we factorizing zeta in f d zeta. In particular, the procedure starts with m equal to 0, and so we compute the first term of this summation, and if this quantity is different to 0, the procedure is stopped, and if this quantity is equal to 0, we take m equal to 1, and we apply the following algorithmic. To test this procedure, we applying on this procedure on the method of Simos et al. To solve the second initial value problem of this form. The scheme that they used is the following, and in particular the reformulation, for example, of this C0 tilde coefficient are these. In particular, the first is calculated by applying the exponential fitting, the traditional exponential fitting procedure. The second regards the reformulation of the coefficient by applying the procedure that we described. And the third regards the coefficient in function of eta function, that another procedure to generate, to eliminate the indeterminate form 0 over 0. We, in particular, we observe the behavior of this coefficient, and in particular, on the left, we show the age dependence of the coefficient, and we observe that the coefficient expressed in terms of eta m function and c and s function converge to the classical value, while the coefficient calculated with the traditional exponential fitting technique blow up when each is decreased. So in the left, on the right, we present the deviation of the coefficient computed with the traditional exponential fitting and with calculated with the C and S function respect in terms of eta m function. To conclude, we want to see that the reformulation of this coefficient restore the convergence of the corresponding exponential fitting method. And to illustrate this, we consider the following problem. And we observed that for h 10 to 0, the error with the coefficient calculated in a traditional way blow up. So when we use the exponential fitting the coefficient with C and S function and with eta m function, 10 to 0. And thanks for your attention.
Okay, Giuseppe, thank you for your presentation. Any comments? As I told you in the very beginning, I cannot go in details of your topic because for me it's not reasonable. Okay. So thank you for being here. No additional.
No, Francesco, wait. Diogo present the next one.
But they are not connected. Tiago.
Sì.
Okay, perfect. Tiago, the floor is yours. Okay, please.
That's okay. Hello, and I present the work of the Sanderson Gonzaga and the others, and the influence of reordering algorithms on the convergence of a preconditioned restarted GM-RES method. And contents, the introduction, results, summary, and reference. And in this introduction, the solution of the large-scale sparse linear system is a fundamental step in several applications in science and engineering. It's typically a step of the simulation that demands high processing times. We focus on simulations on real non-symmetric matrices that are not positive definite. Such matrices arise from the analysis of circuit simulations, computational fluid dynamics, optimization problems, and welfare. These problems can cause several difficulties for preconditioned iterative methods. Incomplete factorization preconditioners may also depend on the ordering of unknowns and equations. It's common sense that if the matrix has non-zero coefficients close to the main diagonal, the number of floating points operations in the ILU factorization can be smaller. Consequently, reordering the unknowns and the equations influence the rates of convergence of preconditioned Kirillov subspace methods. We are particularly interested in the effects of symmetric permutations of the matrix A to the further improving complete approximate factorization preconditioning for sequential calculations with the restarted GM-RES solver. This work is concerned with applying heuristics for bandwidth and profile reduction as a pre-processing step of a restarted generalization minimal residuals solver preconditioned by ULU type preconditioners. Previous publications have reviewed several heuristics for bandwidth and profile reductions. Based on the experience, this paper evaluates 13 low-cost symmetric permutations. The study shows numerical simulations to investigate the influence of these orderings on the convergence of the preconditioners GM-RES solver restarted every 50 steps when applied to non-symmetric and not positive definite matrices. This work shows the most promising combinations of preconditioners and ordering for each linear system used. And this work shows a set of numerical simulations on the influence of 13 reordering strategies on the convergence of the preconditioned GM-RES solver restart every 15 steps using the ULUT, ULUC, and the ARMS methods as preconditioners for a set of 9 sparse linear systems. Starting ordering evaluators, breadth-first search, BFS, procedure, Kutzil-McQueen, and others methods. Yes. And the bandwidth minimization problem consists of labeling the vertices of a graph with positive integer labels aiming at minimizing the maximum absolute difference between the labels of the adjacent vertices. The profile minimization problem is another graph layout problem that consists of finding labeling of the vertices so that the sum of the bandwidth of all vertices is minimum. The problems are isomorphic to the problem of reordering the rows and columns of a symmetric matrix, so that the algorithm place non-null coefficients as close as possible along the main diagonal. Heuristics for bandwidth and profile reductions are typically employed to obtain a sequence of vertices with the spatial locality. Practitioners apply heuristics for bandwidth and profile reductions to obtain low processing times for solving large sparse linear systems by interactive methods. A suitable parameter M for the restarted GMRES solver could be very efficient for each matrix analyzed. Similar to several publications in this field, however, and since the objective was to evaluate the influence of reordering algorithms on the convergence of the restarted GMRES solver, after exploratory investigations, we fixed the number of the restart vectors for the GMRES solver for all matrices used. Result. In this slide, presents the best results in bold with using the GMRES solver, best orderings and conditions used in conjecture. And the conclusions, the constants with the current findings, the experiments conducted is computational experiment show that the choice of the best combination of reordering algorithm and preconditioned GMRES solver is heavily problem dependent. In experiments using 9 linear systems comprised for non-symmetric matrix containing in the sweet sparse matrix collection, the RBFS, BFS, and reverse Cutting-McQueen orderings yielded the best results to reduce the processing times of the preconditioned GMRES solver. In particular, the George Liu algorithm did not favor the reordering algorithm in the experiment performed in this study. Then the experiments include 4 problems in which the GMRES solver preconditioned by a specific preconditioner converged much faster after a permutation of the coefficient matrix than using the original ordering. Previous publications in this field found that natural ordering rarely provides the best results and was usually the worst. The experiments conducted in this study also evaluated the reordering algorithms when applied to the original sequence of nodes and equations given in the linear systems. The results showed that the reordering the matrix did not favor the computing time of the GMRES solver, at least with the parameter used, when applied to 3 out of 9 test matrices used. Additionally, the computing time of the preconditioned GMRES solver applied to the original ordering yielded similar times to the best results achieved when reordering the rows and columns of another linear system. Some characters can explain these different results from previous publications in the other works. First, the experiments performed in the present study employed the other preconditioners. We use the ULUC and ARMS preconditioners, including the ILUT algorithm. Second, the size of the dropped entries strongly influences the effectiveness of incomplete factorizations. The choice of parameters of the GMRES method in tandem with each preconditioner will also conduct quite different in this computational experiment from those previous publications. The suitable difference in the parameter values of incomplete factorizations, preconditioners, and determinants for the convergence
Any problem? Diogo?
We lost him.
I believe we lost him. Let's wait.
Ok. Ok, gli è caduta la connessione. Possiamo aspettare 2 minuti?
Certo.
Si starà riconnettendo. Manca Oleg Smoppi, vero?
Sì.
Ok, me lo segno. Grazie.
Penso che possiamo andare a chiudere, dai.
Chiudiamo?
Beh, avrà avuto un problema, non riesce a riconnettersi.
Va bene.
Sì, io ci sono.
Di che ti occupi, Giuseppe? Per me è così.
Io sono al primo anno.
È
Io sono al
tornato...
primo anno.
Iago, Iago is back.
It's back. Okay.
Press the pot, sorry.
Don't worry.
sorry. And
Okay, you were in the conclusion.
Conclusions. That's the first or the 30 conclusion, but I continue in the 30. And the conclusions, first, the experiment performed the present student lion. And in the third conclusion, the linear system included in the experiments and are much larger than this used in these publications. And for the proper set of linear systems can explain these results, since the best combination of reorder algorithm to conditional GMRS solve is highly problem dependent, as previous mentioned. If it is similar to those previous publications, we limited the experiments to symmetric permutations and using non-symmetric linear systems. For the conclusion, the results of the experiment showed that the risks for profile reductions used are not recommend that, and one can imply the BFS or RCN producer or variant for preprocessing matrix for the GMRS solver, and the RBF
as ordering yielded in general better performance than the classical RCM ordering. That's all. Thank you. Sorry for the connection. And now it presents the reference.
Thank you.
Thank you for you.
Thank you for presenting. Tiago, where are you from?
Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
Paradise. And what about coronavirus now there?
Oh, that's crazy, crazy, much crazy. But I don't speak with you record this. But it's crazy, but crazy.
Actually, here in Italy, we passed the crisis.
No, that's in Brazil. It's much smaller. It's incredible, and it's the university is closed, but pressure for return. It's more complicated, more. But it's the life. It's the Brazil.
I hope that everything goes better as faster as they can.
That's okay. Thank you.
Okay. So Giuseppe, you were telling which is your topic?
User-friendly expression of the sum exponential fitted method.
Okay. Not very explanatory for me, but it's my problem, not yours, of course. Okay, and you work in Salerno University.
Yes.
You are a PhD student?
Yes,
okay.
the first year.
So, from my side, thank you for being here, and all the best for your research and for everything.
Thanks.
You're doing now. I hope to see you in person as soon as we can.
I think that we can just close this session.
Yes, we have also Ivan.
Professor Blecic.
Yeah.
Faccio un giro delle stampe.
Stavamo chiudendo.
Sometimes
we need to do it in English. Do we have English participants here?
Okay. Here we have just 2 participants and they made 3 presentations, so we are closing.
Com'era? Francesco? Sei soddisfatto?
Bene, tutto bene.
Presentazioni, sei soddisfatto della prima giornata?
Sì, assolutamente sì. Assolutamente. Nei contenuti, nella sostanza proprio.
Certo, vabbè. Dai, vi saluto che faccio un giro delle stanze.
Ok. Ciao Ivan.
Ciao.
Ciao a tutti, io chiudo Sara. Ciao.
Ok, chiudo lo streaming.
Okay.
Thanks to all. Bye.
Bye bye.